The Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment held its performance review of the natural resources and environment sector on February 4th.
This exercise that we have embarked upon, I think this is our third, is intended to be part of our mandate of ensuring accountability, some level of transparency and openness of the sector to all stakeholders. It is an opportunity for the various agencies to present in summary what it is they've achieved, and it's much more than what you see here, but also to give you stakeholders the opportunity to comment and to have a better and a firmer appreciation of what's taking place in the natural resources and the environment sector. Governments are usually accused of not being open, perhaps of having something to hide, and in some instances of being dodgy. And given the importance of this sector, the natural resources and environment sector, we've made it quite clear that we will be as transparent, as open, and as forthcoming with information and clarification as is so required, one by statute, because all of the entities now, we've been able over the last 3 years to bring their annual reports up and make them current in the National Assembly.
The forestry sector continues to record growth, with production volumes increasing in the main product categories, an increase of 21% when compared to 2013, and a 38% increase in export earnings. Guyana further advanced its engagement with the European Union on the formulation of a voluntary partnership agreement in 2014. In 2015, the GFC will aggressively continue its work.
We at the National Forest Policy, we prepared thematic areas for 2014, which will roll over to 2015. And these are under the categories of improved production, processing, manufacturing and export of forest produce, increase and enhance local forest product added value activities, stimulation of greater foreign and local investment in the sector as existing investment, and to encourage and monitor investments from existing stakeholders. Previous was new investment. Increase training and capacity building at all levels in the sector. Encourage an increase in indirect and direct employment. Increase community access to forest resources. Promotion and enhancement of sustainable management, forest monitoring, forest legality, and reduced impact logging. And increase market development and promotion, including the very important point of the greater promotion of the lesser used species. And the last thematic area, fulfilling our local and international obligations, including activities under the low carbon development strategy, reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation, monitoring, reporting, verification activities, the MOU with Norway, and finalizing the Guyana-EU Forest Law Enforcement, Governance and Trade Voluntary Partnership Agreement, etc.
The mining sector had its fair share of challenges in 2014, with declaration for gold declining by 19.45% when compared to 2013. Despite these challenges, the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission made notable progress in executing its mandate.
The GDMC in 2014 had an interesting and maintained a measured and steady outlook, which could not be unwelcome as some of the challenges to be spoken about later took on their own dimension. However, the technical and operational aspect of the Commission, like previous days, were typically focused on regulatory and compliance undertaking, as these areas are most visible and subjected to most public scrutiny. Roving patrols, compliance sweeps, investigations in response to complaints, and routine patrols of mines in the field were intended to influence orderly conduct in the sector. The root cause of some of the disorder could be linked to competition for available working lands. This is supported by evidence of 3,550 new applications for land claims and 949 new applications for reclaim, and some 3,236 mandatory fees. In addition, 3,590 bids were issued in 2014. The Commission further exercised its purview in areas of prospecting license and deal with strategic stepwise development of large-scale operations. Prospecting license, Kaburi, Kiyuni, Kopam, and Kuruni were all subjected to monitoring. Of the 24 PL visited, at least 70% were found to have some form of illegal activities going on as a result of opportunistic and/or predatory attitude among minors. For PL, the covenant of the license to monitor the property against illegal operations is just as important, perhaps more so than in other cases. The situation from the best ceasefire orders were found to be disregarded. What was related up to this time, while unflattering, is the indication that the Commission has been executing according to its mandate and keeping with the work plan that related to regulating and compliance enforcement. Other significant development during 2014 were the areas of mineral processing demonstration. The gold catcher, the gold cube, flotation systems were demonstrated in Northwest District, Omai, Frenchman, and Mali. In the latter 2014, the Ghana Gold and Diamond Miners Association GDM forged a closer cooperation which will result in the deployment of a private processing plant to showcase a viable mercury-free circuit with a possible recovery levels in excess of 80%. The mining community in particular will benefit from assistance directed at roads and infrastructure, rehabilitation, Mycobian, Chubach, Matthews Bridge, and Barometer, and Aranco were part of this. The Peruni Road saw later for timely action, as did the Tamki Road. Altogether, the Special Projects Unit can still ascertain that approximately 1.1 billion was allocated for road infrastructure during 2014. Special projects were also engaged in repair and providing facilities for expansion of our offices at Lethem, Olive Creek, Aranca, Eagles Falls to the value of 200 million. The petroleum exploration sector captured attention with exploration activity in offshore block license to Repsol and CGX as seismic studies were done. Meanwhile, in block license to ESO, pre-drilling preparations were evident and is expected to start in the second quarter of 2015. The On Energy block on the coast of Borbit received a boost with the aerial survey commenced late in 2014.
Government assisting miners. Small and medium-scale operators benefit from duty-free access to all-terrain vehicles, or ATVs, excavators, bulldozers, and other machinery used in the mining industry. These waivers on duty are available to new entrants to the sector and for current miners based on production levels. A message from the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. At the start of the 20th century, there were only a handful of protected areas in the world. Although many have existed for generations over time, they have been recognized as a mainstay of biodiversity conservation as well as contributing to people's livelihoods. The Three Parks Initiative is a collaborative effort among the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, the Protected Areas Commission, the Bihari Group of Companies, and Conservation International. It has been a busy year for the Protected Areas Commission with the management and rehabilitation of a number of protected sites. As it relates to the Three Parks Initiative, a number of programs were completed in 2014, along with the provision of staff development activities.
Protected areas is kind of a new concept, and it's an indictment on us and a push to really start to communicate a little better as to the complexities of protected areas. I mean, protected areas are contribute to certain sectors in society like tourism and stuff. Nothing as significant as gold, for instance, but it adds diversity to an economy. But rather than just focusing on those tangible things, I think it's important as well to recognize the other impact of protected areas. So when we talk about protected areas, we're also talking about places like Kaijor, which basically cuts to the heart of who we are as a Guyanese people, and I think will play an important role in our future as a nation. And for 2014, what the Protected Areas Commission has been doing is trying to address these perceptions as well as contribute both from a tangible as well as an intangible point of view.
The Environmental Protection Agency continued to implement measures geared towards protecting the environment through the implementation and enforcement of regulations and stakeholder engagement. The EPA plans to continue the advancement of its role in protecting sound environmental management in Guyana for 2015.
How does EPA carries out its regulatory approach? And there are basically four aspects. That is setting standards, which is through our authorization process, the EIA, the ESIA. It is providing support to industries and projects that are permitted to comply with the regulations, and to monitor those facilities with the regulations. And if and when they are in breach, then we enforce the law. And that is why the main reason for setting up the compliance and enforcement division. And then this is supported by the Education and Awareness Training Division, which provides information and educate the general populace, as well as those developers and persons who are engaged in development activities. And we are supported by several accompanying regulations which support the Environment Protection Act. These are the authorization, regulation, noise management, water quality, air quality, wildlife management and conservation, and you would have heard of the litter prevention regulations recently. So what were some of our main goals and objectives in 2014? Basically continuing with the authorization process, ensuring that all development projects and activities with potential significant impacts and risk are taken through the ESIA and the EMP process. That is a hallmark of the Environmental Authorization Division. And then compliance assistance and environmental education awareness, particularly focusing on hotspot areas. We've had some significant issues in the mining areas, in the forestry areas, and so we've been focusing on these, not only in the interior, but along the coast of Guyana, where our bottom houses started up with various small-scale chicken farm, chicken pens, spray painting shops, furniture shops, and that has emerged into something enormous, or perhaps a monster. And so we have difficulties dealing with these type of activities. And so we also engage in compliance inspection of the projects that are permitted by the authorization divisions. And we also investigate reports of pollution.
Litter not only defaces the natural environment, it is also unhealthy and irresponsible. Don't you want to enjoy the beauty and enormous services our environment offers? Then why not be the change you want to see? Let us work together to eliminate the repulsive habit of littering.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
Government assisting miners. The Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment and the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission continue to undertake the rehabilitation of hinterland roads and infrastructure to ensure mining lands are easily accessible. In this regard, efforts are being made to implement road monitoring checkpoints to ensure that roads are not used indiscriminately, since this results in its deterioration. A message from the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. The quantity of gold purchased by the Guyana Gold Board fell by 40.15% in 2014 when compared to the previous year.
All raw gold presented to the board in its various forms we have to purchase. We also conduct what I call operational functions. So that would be essentially burning the gold, weighing, looking at the density, taking samples. We also smelt and export the physical gold. We are required to secure a fair and reasonable price for the asset. More recently, we've started to license dealers, and we would license and regulate those dealers, and then we also conduct verification of their exports. This is a chart essentially looking at the gold prices for the period of January to the end of December 2014. And what you would notice is that gold opened the year at 1225 and ended at 1206. So it was essentially just a 2% decline, but that 2% decline masks the fact that gold over the period has actually had a very, essentially went through a very volatile period. For a period of time, it traded at $1,300 US dollars per ounce. It actually was as high as $1,385. And then for a significant period coming on to the end of the year, it traded below 1,200. In fact, its lowest point was at 1142. And in order to understand why this happened, it's perhaps important to look at the supply and demand. So on the supply side, we see supply was, okay, before I continue, I should say that we did not get data for the last international gold supply and demand for the last quarter of 2014. So I'm comparing Q1 to Q3 of 2013 with Q1 to Q4 of 2014. And what you find is that supply was essentially stable, just growing by 3%. However, demand was more, demand in every area fell. Except for central banking. So demand overall fell by 7%. And while exchange-traded funds were not as significant in the overall demand, the fact that exchange-traded funds fell by 88% signals that investors felt that there is a need to move away from gold because of the fact that there was a stronger U.S. economy. The U.S. economy recovery was seen to actually be on a continuous process. The U.S. dollar itself strengthened when compared to other OECD basket of currencies. And then, importantly, the Federal Reserve of the United States indicated that they will be moving away from their quantitative easing program.
The Wildlife Management Steering Committee was established to oversee the management and conservation of wildlife in Guyana. In 2014, the committee was able to provide oversight and guidance in the development of strategies and programs for wildlife management and conservation.
Wildlife Management Authority's role is more of an administrative role, and so it is responsible for the administrative aspects of wildlife trade regulation. It looks at the licensing, permitting, quota management, and monitoring of the trade. The Scientific Authority has an advisory role, and it's responsible for advising the Wildlife Management Authority on the scientific aspects of wildlife trade regulation. So some of the functions of the Scientific Authority would include making recommendations on the establishment of quotas, conducting non-detriment findings, and doing a review of the production systems, which I'll explain as we get in a little more into the presentation. So basically, the work plan of the Wildlife Division would then have two components. We have the work of the Wildlife Management Authority and the work of the Wildlife Scientific Authority. So the work of the Wildlife Management Authority in 2014 focused on the licensing and permitting, inspections and monitoring, capacity building and training, and meetings and conferences. So on the licensing and permitting, the Management Authority would have gone about issuing the license for commercial trade, well, really commercial export trade, issuing permits to facilitate individual shipments, managing the quota, conducting software upgrades, and the permits are issued by a trade management software. So in the past we had done this manually, but now we have the software that actually issues the permits. And periodically we assess the functions of the software and conduct upgrades just to make it more efficient. And finally, under this category, preparation of the CITES annual report. So for license in 2014, We issued 20 commercial licenses compared to 27 in 2013, 19 commercial exploitation licenses, 19 holding premises license, and there were no commercial importation license issued in 2014. We issued one in 2013. In 2013, we began making arrangements to change the license year. So previously, the license year ran from April 4th of one year to April 3rd of the following year. And we decided to have the license year coincide with the calendar year from January 1st to December 31st. And so we successfully made the change last year. And so the applications for license for the January 1st to December 31st trading year, those were processed in November and December last year. And at this point, we still have 3 applications for this year pending.
I like to encourage people to take your garbage and take it home with you if you have to. You don't have to throw it on the streets.
Littering is not advisable, it's not healthy, and it's not right. So please don't litter.
When we litter, we damage our environment. We destroy the marine life. Let us protect our environment and more so bring back Guyana to the beauty that it once was and it can surely be.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
In 2015, the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment will continue to provide the legal framework and mechanisms to support growth, the effective management of natural resources on which development depends, and protect the environment.
The sector's contribution to the economy is significant. And if we look, increasingly it's playing a significant role on the economic side, but also its impact on the social side and what we're doing in terms of some of the intangibles, which perhaps you cannot put a dollar figure to, is increasing. And that is why the creation and the establishment of the ministry by President Ramatar was not only visionary, but what was needed at this point in time, given the interests both in terms of utilization and development of our natural resources and its accompanying pressure in terms of ensuring that we maintain the type of balance in terms of environmental stewardship, environmental management. And it's a sector that next year, well, this year, 2015 and beyond, we will see increased growth and increased contribution on the economic side, but also on the social as well as in the environmental side, because of some of the major projects that are going to take off this year on the extractive side, but also some of the initiatives that we've embarked upon on the environmental and factor that we're looking at, but also looking at some other initiatives, how it is we can mobilize the environmental services that we provide. What I've sought to do this morning, rather than to speak to you and talking about what our plans and elaborate, is to answer a number of questions. And these questions have predominated the public as well as the private debate and discussions about the sector and what is taking place. And one of the questions that was asked and continue to be asked, not only in Guyana, that when you have a ministry that is responsible for both the natural resources aspect as well as the environmental aspect, would there be one compromising the other? And does it in a way throw up an inherent conflict and prevent one from getting the attention as against it and taking away attention from the other? And we've worked extensively with a number of international partners, and we've looked at examples where this exists and how it operated. And there are more than 24 countries that have it in the form and fashion that we have, but there are also other countries that have taken this approach. And increasingly, when you go to both within the hemisphere or outside of the hemisphere, when you have at the UN level interaction, the recognition for greater harmonization and interaction between the extractive as well as environmental is stressed and important. And it was recognized that when you have these two critical responsibility existing, as we had it before 2011, residing in about 5 different ministry of entities, it creates a level of confusion, inefficiency, poor coordination, And sometimes in situations such as where resources are limited, you have duplication and, in a way, poor planning in the utilization of resources. And many countries have recognized the need to have a cluster approach. And in Guyana, we were able to develop that through the ministry. And these are just some of the examples of some of the initiatives that we've been taking to address some of the historical challenges that have existed because of the lack of coordination and harmonization. Take, for instance, the issue of hinterland infrastructure to support, take, for instance, the forestry sector, the mining sector, and working very closely with the Ministry of Public Works. Before, sometimes you would find one ministry budgeting for this undertaking, another agency also planning to do the same, and there was this lack of interface and lack of coordination. The Hinterland Infrastructure Committee has allowed us to ensure that we are all on the same page and have, as it were, one plan in terms of developing the type of infrastructure and bringing in the different partners. Geographical information system, we've just, the Cabinet approved the policy whereby this will be very much, as it were, mainstreamed into the operations of not only the Natural Resources and Environment Agency, but rolling that out across government. And this committee, headed up by the UG Vice Chancellor, who is an expert in his own in this regard, attempts to, again, to give some level of leadership and guidance in how we can deploy this.
I just think that littering is very bad, and I think that we all as Guyanese should just stop littering, get a piece of garbage, just put it in a bin and that's it.
We should help come out and keep the city clean.
Do the right thing, put it in a bin, throw the tin in the bin.
Stop littering. Do the right thing.
Government assisting miners. The government of Guyana has set aside the sum of $1 billion Guyana dollars for a revolving mercury-free mining development fund as to provide low-cost financing to miners to adopt mercury-free and increased gold recovery technologies. A message from the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission. Check us out on the internet for this and every episode of Dorado Shines. Just go to YouTube, search for Dorado Shines, and start watching. Or like us on Facebook and receive instant updates. You've been watching Dorado Shines. Be sure to join us again next week for another program. Until then, do remember that we all have a role to play in protecting the environment.